We got Kevin Hancock and Tyler Miller with us today from the Defiance SWCD. Welcome. Where do you want us to present? Back here, up there. You need the mic? There are not too many of us, but however you want to do it.
So I'm Kevin Hancock. I'm the district administrator at the Soil and Water Conservation District. I've actually been there. I'll be there 29 years come June. So, and then Tyler Miller here. He's a district technician for the office now, also. So, the Soil and Water was actually organized in March of 1949. It's with the USDA, NRCS, Ohio Department of Agriculture, and the County Commissioners. Our mission statement is to protect the land and water in Defiance County by being an innovative leader, assisting and educating the public to make the best choices for conserving and preserving our natural resources. So we basically about came full circle, because back in the day, kind of before my time, they actually used to have plowing contest. I mean, and Soil and Water would actually put on plowing contest and such, and then the 80s, kind of into the 90s, no-till got to be a big thing. So it's kind of where we're at today. I guess I'll turn most of the presentation over here to Tyler for now, and let him kind of go through something.
You gotta be careful of that, because I'm a talkative one. Okay, so water quality is one of our key things, and that's steadily moved up as far as our priorities the last few years, because we've got the Lake Erie thing going on, right? I mean, that's been going on for the last probably about 20 years now. But really that's kind of what we base almost all of our stuff on, and you can kind of read through some of that stuff. Drainage is a close second, and I mean, most people, sometimes we complain about drainage, but if we didn't have drainage, we wouldn't be able to live where we're at. I mean, this was the Black Swamp, which we're trying to bring some of that back through wetlands and that kind of stuff. But it's very important that we have drainage. I mean, this time of year, we very much notice when we don't have drainage. Education that's always been important. It's just a matter of how you do it. I mean, the best way for us is through teach the young, right? I mean, that's the best way to do it. One thing, in the schools, they're held captive, okay? So you have the kids in there, and so we can educate them and really try to get our message across when they're first, second, third graders, so that, hey, when they're adults, they can make educated decisions that help our environment instead of, and there's nothing wrong with educating our adults. I mean, that's a great process, but one thing, you gotta get people there to educate. And so we try to start them out young and try to get that idea that, hey, our natural resources are important, they should be valued, and our water quality and all that stuff should be valued and treasured, because we don't know when it's gonna go away. Like I said, water quality, those are all things that are pretty important. The 4 R's, it's all the rights, it's time, it's place, it's source. And then a conservation reserve program, that's CRP. Some of you guys that own land may be in part of that. That's a lot of stuff along your ditches. You have filter strips where you have grass growing there, and it's twofold. It's to keep water from running off into those places that might cause issues for water quality. It's also to keep us away from those sensitive areas, like where we might have ditches, streams, where we want to keep that water integrity. H2 Ohio, if you're in the soil and water world, you'd have to be under a rock to not know what H2 Ohio is, but bottom line, the state has spent a lot of dollars the last few years trying to promote good practices in the Western Lake Erie Basin, where we reside here. And they've done that through a wetland program, which is listed right below that, and also our nutrient management plan program. I posted this on there. This won't mean a lot to you. It should. So we're very close to Heidelberg University, Heidelberg is the national center for water quality research, not state, national. I always say Laura Johnson, she's one of my favorite people to listen to. She's out of Heidelberg, does a great job of giving a speech about different rivers and water quality, why, bottom line, a lot of Lake Erie's problems are agricultural based. And not always for the same reason that the people in Toledo sometimes think, but there's a lot of reasons why agriculture is a big part of the issue. But I just wanted to let you know that, hey, we have a lot of really good resources here, and Heidelberg is one of them. So you guys know Defiance College is actually putting in a water quality testing program. We're really excited with that. Defiance City's been pursuing that. I think it could have real value for our youth here. Everybody in Defiance County, I think, will get value out of that, especially in our education system. There's a Western Lake Erie Basin. All those different colors are different, what we call HUX, which are hydrologic unit code. Everybody has a number associated with it. I don't know the numbers. As you get a longer number, like a HUC 4 might be the Mississippi River, and as you get to a HUC 12, you might be in a small stream that's by your house. All those are just kind of facts beside there, and I didn't really realize that there's 11 million people that get their drinking water from Lake Erie. That's why it was a big deal when we had those issues on the lake. 80% of the watershed's agricultural. So when we argue that agriculture is maybe not part of the issue, that's a pretty tough argument to make. And not saying that agriculture is not trying to hold up its end of the bargain. Kevin and I are both farmers. We value what we do. We try to do good conservation practices, but even the best laid plans sometimes don't work right if weather doesn't cooperate. It's also the shallowest lake. Phosphorus is our problem. You look at the Gulf down, outside the Mississippi there, it's nitrogen based. We're all phosphorus based here, is our driving force. And you'll hear this dissolved reactive phosphorus. It's something, bottom line, our scientists don't quite understand. We'd like to understand it. We were all, as youth, we were told that phosphorus doesn't move. Actually, about 20% of it is incredibly mobile. And as soon as it comes in contact with water, it's able to move. We don't know how to control it. So we're asking farmers to manage their nutrients when really what they're losing is a couple tenths of a pound per acre. It's a very small number, but we're asking them to manage that, and that gets to be a tough management strategy. Lots of testing, people. I brought up Heidelberg already. Stone Lab, if you ever get to Put in Bay and you decide to leave one of the bars and go get some education out of it, you should check out Stone Lab. It's a neat tour. I think you can get a tour, I don't want to say anytime, but they have a tour there, and I encourage looking at it. They do a lot of water quality stuff there. That graph over there, we're government people, so you gotta love charts and graphs. Bottom right, that's how our blooms have been the last about 15 years. The last line on there's 22. We don't really know how 23 is gonna look. They'll start putting out, probably in about June, they'll put out an estimate of what they think the bloom will look like and where it'll line up. It all has to do with our rainfall basically starting in March, going through June, and they have a pretty good idea what the bloom will look like in the Western Lake Erie Basin. The Western Basin, so you know, is the shallowest of Lake Erie, averages about 24 feet deep. Another little known fact is that the Maumee is the largest watershed in all of the Great Lakes, not Lake Erie, of all the Great Lakes. Okay, so, and I didn't know that for a long time. That's why we have a lot of issues there. We probably won't have them in the other lakes because the lakes are deeper, they're bigger, and they end up being cooler. So, I mean, that's solving the problems is difficult. Picture obviously there on the top, that would have been a picture from, I believe, 2013 or 15, and you can see that is green, that is algae filled. I won't read through all of our nutrient management laws that we have. Senate Bill 1 says, hey, don't apply stuff in the wintertime or when they're calling for a lot of rain. We also have ag pollution abatement, meaning if runoff from manure or synthetic fertilizer or even sediment, if we have runoff events of that, it can be fined. People can receive fines, but even if they did things right, if there's a runoff, there still can be problems. We encourage people to use the Tri-State Fertility Guide. That's put together by Ohio State, Purdue, and Michigan State. OACI is something kind of new. It works with H2 Ohio. We're, I don't want to say ranking farmers, we're scoring farmers and telling them the good things that we're doing, and also telling them the things that, hey, you could probably improve here, and here's how you can do it. All of our practices for H2 Ohio, we have a list of them. That'll probably actually change here in a year or two, because we're going to have H2 Ohio 2.0 coming up probably in the next year or so. Our CRP practices that we have, we do a lot of this stuff, and we do a lot of design here at Defiance Soil and Water. Not all counties do that. I mean, we're pretty blessed to have a lot of people that have CAD experience that can design a lot of these. That's a great stabilization structure that you see there. We would call that a drop box with a head wall. That's a grass waterway. Yes, Bruce, go ahead.
Going back up, you don't need to back up. You were talking about one of the biggest problems with phosphorus and stuff. And I noticed about the third line down, a couple pictures back, they talked about basically knifing the phosphorus in the ground instead of spreading on top. Can they make that a law?
Well, so that's probably the best practice. The numbers show that it's the best practice to reduce our runoff event. The problem is, how do you, like this was an excellent fall, so how do you get all that done in the fall? We have a lot of acres to cover. That's a much slower process than broadcasting. How do you get that all done? Some products don't work very well that way, like chicken litter, for example. That's difficult to knife in. You can incorporate it, and that's actually one of the practices we have there is manure incorporation, which is kind of funny for some of us because some people are no-till based. But we know when we leave nutrients on top, they don't go down. I mean, we'd like them to. That's called stratification. It wants to stay up there, and that top inch or two is going to be really high in all of our nutrients. One thing, there's the most biology up there, so it's going to have the most nutrients up there. We're trying to get that down, but we're got to be careful. We probably don't want to encourage plowing again, because part of our problem in the 70s when Lake Erie was doing what it was doing was the cities and also sediment based. We've cleaned up the sediment, but now it's this dissolved reactive phosphorus that we don't understand why it's doing what it's doing. But those are all the different practices, and there's a lot of adaptation in Defiance County and the surrounding areas. We're probably about 50% in Defiance County. There's some other counties that are a little bit higher. But we also have a big NRCS presence here in Defiance County that ties up quite a few of those acres from us. In a good way, that ties them up in a good way because they're already in a program of some sort or another practicing those things. Wetlands have become a kind of bigger thing here the last few years because of some of the bonus that they've given for them. Filter strips, explained them before. Recharge areas, they're just blocks of grass like 100 by 100 right where water is leaving the field, because we know that's where we have our biggest issue. And that's a picture of a grade stabilization structure. That was our grass waterway, so it's hard to see there, but that gully, I'm fairly short, but there at the outlet of the gully, that was above my head on the left side. And on the after, obviously that's a very similar structure to the one you just seen on the previous slide. That one's not quite as deep. I could see out of that one. But we've obviously filled that in. We've put you see a rock check up there that kind of holds so we don't have as much erosion. And actually that picture on the left, so that one I said was above my head, that's the one in that picture. And then the other one on the right is, we call a head wall structure. It's got a pipe protruding from it, basically coming right to the edge. Water kind of sets there in a bowl fashion and then eventually runs out of there. Wetlands, we know that they're a great thing. Anywhere we have somebody that's very interested in wildlife and also water quality, is a great fit for those places. We're going to say less productive acres, might be not necessarily edge of fields, but if you have a hunk of a field that's like, boy, this is just cut up, it's hard to farm, it's a really good practice for that, and pretty good bonus dollars for that right now to enroll. Cover crops on the left, yes sir.
On that wetlands there, so it sounds like what you're saying, if you establish wetlands, you can get paid for that stuff?
You can, yes, yep,
Okay.
as long as, so, it's gotta have like cropping history, but bottom line, if it's in a field, a crop situation now, they're wanting to pull those acres out of crop production, especially the ones that they're looking for the right soils and that kind of stuff. There are some stipulations, but yes, they're actively looking for wetlands, and that's done actually through CREP, is the name of it. It's a Lake Erie CREP, so it's a program that's run through ODNR that sweetens the pot for the federal program, which is the Conservation Reserve Program.
Probably already had one, that's, you'd have, probably what they're gonna do is make you reestablish or establish.
They want new acres. They've kind of, I don't want to pick on our federal partners because it's pretty easy to do sometimes. But they want new acres. That's what they're after, new acres. You know, acres that are, they're already in cropland, they want to pull those out of production and use them for that wetland situation. And we've had several of those go in the last few years. I mean, we did a bunch. Kevin, when he first started, did a ton of designs in the early 90s. When the first time CREP came around, we enrolled a bunch. So a lot of the low-hanging fruit is already in wetlands, and you might not even recognize them because they look a lot different now. A lot of them have maybe some trees growing up in them, and they look more like a swamp, what you would say. Cover crops on the left. Good wages to cover our soil in the wintertime. Drainage water management. Your tile, realistically, only need to really work for you for about 3 months out of the year. The rest of it, we really should be holding that water back and using that soil as a sponge. Because there's nutrients in that water. We're actually losing more nitrogen and phosphorus through our tile system than we are on our surface. The dilution rate is much lower in the tile. The rate, as you know, the amount of phosphorus per gallon of water is much less. The problem is you're draining a lot more out of your tile system than you are on your surface. Surface only runs when you get a rainfall event, right? Then the rest of it comes down through your tile. So we have to manage that tile system. So we just put one of these in a couple of years ago. It's a cascading waterway. It's out on the Dara plot, which is out by Defiance Airport. So it acts like a grass waterway with a wetland installed in the middle of it. And so there's little pool areas there that water can collect. And then, I mean, the idea is that it works down through the soil profile. We know that doesn't always work well here because water doesn't go down very easy here. So as it evaporates, it can fill up again with the next rainfall event. It holds that sediment back. It holds some of that water and nutrients back. Also works out, you can get some aquatic life in there. They're kind of an up-and-coming practice. We installed ours, I think, in 17 or 19. This is actually near Hicksville. Would be a denitrifying bioreactor. Really, it's the first one in the state that's built to scale. There's several of them in the state, but they're built more as something to look at as a model. This was built to basically control about 30 acres, but you're looking at that hole on the left side, that's probably bigger than your basement at your house. That's about 100 feet by 7 feet deep by 25 feet wide. That's a lot of dirt moved, and we filled the whole thing in with wood chips. And the wood chips, they tie up nitrates, and so eventually we'll have to pull those wood chips out when they've served their time, which we don't know how long that'll be. We're hoping to get 5 to 7 years out of them. Pull it out, put new wood chips in there. It allows tile to run into it, slowly permeate through it, and then eventually run out the outlet. But that's new. We don't know a lot about it. More Kevin's in here. He also runs, so Kevin's a busy guy. He runs our soil and water, but he's also the administrator of ditch maintenance. So we got a tree revetment shown there. So some places you can't, like if we're trying to maintain a channel and we can't get rock in, and rock is also expensive, you take trees and you line the wall, the bank with it. And it works, it's dual purpose, so we're kind of recycling in our own right, and not having to use other resources, trying to maintain, you know, a cheap way to keep the channel in good shape. A couple different practices we do. The left side, there's a one-sided construction. Usually if we're around the woods, we try to do one-sided. so we can let the woods kind of give us a benefit from having the biology that woods offers, but also giving us the benefit on the one side. And that two-stage ditch, that's probably right here in Hicksville, and that was really here to benefit the hospital and to retain some water. So you allow the channel to move, to wind down through the bottom, and then you make the banks, you kind of make that a larger area so you have retention there, so you can hold on to the water. So it's not screaming down that channel, it's slowing up and giving our drainage on the downstream side a way to handle it. I believe that'd be Merritt Ditch there. Education, some of you guys might remember Bill Grimes. He's in there. He sometimes looks like a homeless guy, but he's actually trying to dress up as Johnny Appleseed most of the time. So he lets his hair go long, beard go long. He's our past educator. We have Wendy Baker as our education specialist right now. She does a wonderful job. She's been in Hicksville several times, and she's hard to find at the office because she's always flying around. So we do a lot of different things here. We do tours for 5th and 6th grade. Hicksville actually goes out to camp for, I think, their 6th graders, but we go help with that also. We send a couple people there to help with camp. And we do some stuff that we'll get into Penny Nature Center here in a minute. Envirothon is near and dear to my heart. Hicksville's done very well at that the last few years. In fact, they were 5th place last year. The top 4 go to state. Defiance County sent 2 teams to state. This is 26 counties, mind you, and about 60 schools total. So Defiance County had 3 teams in the top 5, which is very impressive. That kids camp we do at Penny Nature Center. That's a picture there on the left. And then on the right is our 6th grade school tour. We have Jamie Walters. He's talking about beehives and honeybees, which is obviously a hot topic right now. Envirothon, like I said, I take a lot of pride in that. So is our education specialist, Wendy. We're trying to get people excited about the outdoors and encourage them to get in environmental studies later in life. Fairview finished 4th and went to state, and Sonora finished 2nd and went to state. This last year, they actually got to go to Lake Erie College. State Envirothon is in Defiance County this year. We're super excited about that, but it's a lot of work. Penny Nature Center. So there's a bunch of writing down there in the bottom left. The bottom line says that some land was donated to the district, I believe in 2001.
I think that's right. It was early 2000s. It was donated by Nancy Jo Penny to the Soil and Waters to maintain conservation. They wanted conservation stuff done there. So basically, early stages of that, Ed McCullough, he came in and put in a bunch of wetlands and stuff out there for us. Ayersville FFA came in, built some observation decks. Early on, there was like one trail built that people could walk on in a shelter house. But over the past couple years here now, the commissioners funded us basically to improve it. So we redone the observation decks through Boy Scouts, came in and did that. We put some more trails in, and here recently we just put in some educational signs and some trail markers for that. So there's about 9 educational signs out there now that either kids, adults, whatever, can walk trails, stop, read them signs, learn about anything. Like we got a prairie grass one, we got tracks and scat one, we got parts of a tree one, that type of stuff. And then trails are marked where anybody can go out there, walk the trails. We put a bigger driveway in just this last summer to be able to get back in the parking lot, to be able to get back to the shelter house, that we can get buses back there to start having kids programs and such. So this This is one of the big projects that we're trying to gonna really try to promote, really try to make it a public place.
We want you guys to promote this also. So, I mean, obviously, you guys talk to people, you guys are leaders in the community. Go out there. Just, to be honest with you, I was out there a couple weeks ago. It was wet, but I mean, you didn't have water over your feet. So, I could hear in the crowd, location, we don't know where it's at. That's part of the problem, is locating it. So, actually, you've probably seen it. So, like, if you took Buckskin all the way down to 15, and then took 15 into Defiance, if in about a mile, if you look off to your right, you're gonna see a couple wetland ponds there. We do have a sign there. There's not very good access off of State Route 15, but actually the access is off of Ashbacher Road, and it would be basically in between Lockwood and where State Route 15 is. So it's a nice site. It's pretty relaxing to go out there, especially if you're out there by yourself and you're fairly quiet. You can see quite a bit of wildlife. There's, I don't know how many miles of trail, several miles worth of trail. Some in a wooded area, some out in the prairie grass. And like we said, we got all those signs and the markers. It's something you can see pretty quick. This fall, I took my kids out there. It was just beautiful with the colors. I mean, I even told my wife, I said, well, you know, sometimes you feel like, well, I got to go to Vermont to see these beautiful colors. Well, you don't always have to do that. There's other options for you. So.
Well, we'd like to thank you for having us, and hopefully you enjoyed our presentation.
I'm sure they'll stick around afterwards if you got any questions. But
I just want to make a comment. In all the years that we've called down, Turk and I or whatever, I want to thank you guys. You've always been so good to work with, so knowledgeable, informative, and so helpful, and I appreciate it, and thank you for that.
yeah. We'll dismiss with the pledge.